Okay, video number 2 this week, just continuing on looking at some of the events that went on in Holy Week, the final week in Jerusalem in Jesus' life. And last night we looked at the triumphal entry, talked about the people proclaiming him king and these large crowds that gathered and the expectations they would have had for their Messiah, what they would have been hoping for was coming from him right now. And then I want to look at a little more just this week as how those expectations would have changed throughout the week or been actually gone unmet would be the best way to say it. But tonight I just wanted to look at 2 short passages in Luke, and it's right after the triumphal entry. We told Jesus goes and he cleanses the temple. It says, I'm not going to give the whole history lesson, but Jesus goes in and he throws out the people who are, the money changers that are there. There's people buying and selling, and he says, this is supposed to be a house of prayer and you've made it a den of thieves. And he kicks them out of there. What I wanted to look at was the reaction after that. It says, every day he was teaching in the temple, the chief priests, the scribes, and the leaders of the people were looking for a way to kill him. But they could not find a way to do it because all the people were captivated by what they heard. So these guys want Jesus gone. We know these are the leaders in Jerusalem. They're jealous of a guy coming in. He's drawing huge crowds. He's teaching new things that maybe aren't the proper way to do it, the way they know how to teach. And they don't like it. They don't like the crowd captivated by him. But worse, they're scared of a crowd captivated by him. They really didn't like someone having this kind of sway over the crowd. And the reason they don't go and kill him or even just remove him or get him out is because they are so scared of what the crowd might do to them, because they know the crowd is in love with Jesus. They're following him. They're hanging on his every word. They're not going to put up with them removing him. So they're stuck. So then it goes into the next day, or it says one day in Luke chapter 20. As he was teaching the people in the temple and proclaiming the good news, the chief priests and the scribes with the elders came and said to him, tell us, by what authority are you doing these things? Who is it who gave you this authority? So now they're going to challenge Jesus. They can't just get rid of him the way they'd like to. So let's see if he'll trip himself up here. And that's a theme you'll see repeated throughout the Gospels. When they ask, should we pay taxes? There's many questions they ask him. Are you the Messiah? Those questions in first century Israel were a trap. You didn't proclaim yourself Messiah. You didn't say you were the Son of God. You didn't equate yourself with God. There's some big consequences of that unless you could back it up. So in their minds, this guy can't back it up. So they're trying to trap him. But Jesus answered them, I will also ask you a question. Tell me, was the baptism of John from heaven or of human origin? They discussed it among themselves. If we say from heaven, he will say, why didn't you believe him? But if we say of human origin, all the people will stone us because they are convinced that John was a prophet. So they answered they did not know its origin. And Jesus said to them, neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. I just picked those 2 verses because there's a very similar theme there. They can't even answer a simple question at this point because they're so worried. They said, well, if we agree with the people, Jesus is going to trap us now and trip us up, make us look silly. And if we disagree with the people and say that John was just from human origin, they're going to stone us. And I have sympathy. I don't want to avoid a stoning as well. But I just find it funny to me that they wouldn't even answer a question and perhaps maybe go a little bit deeper in their conversation with Jesus because they were so worried about how the people perceived them. They wouldn't do anything to upset that balance. These are people who loved their status. They loved everything about being a teacher. They liked the power that went with it. So in order to do that, you have to have the people sort of, if not in your corner, under your control. So they wouldn't do something that's going to upset the people and perhaps send them after them, make them turn on them. And the reason I picked those again is that I laugh at these and think, like, how could these guys hear Jesus talks, know the stories, see the things he's doing? Like it talks in Matthew, it talks about him healing people in the temple. Like there was a lot going on this week, but all they cared about was let's get rid of this guy. Like how could they not want to sit at his feet and listen, see what's going on here? But then I kind of chuckled to myself and thought, well, people today aren't so different either. I think we're all very aware of how we're perceived by people. And I look at these guys, they're trying to act a certain way. They're going to keep their status and to show their power and how important they were. They would never lower themselves to maybe go sit and have a chat with Jesus, find out what's going on. They need to try to put their authority over him. And I'm not saying we do that, but we do something similar. We do try to shape our own stories or shape what people see from us so that they see our story a certain way, the way we want it to be seen. And I think it just seems to be maybe the curse of humanity that we do worry very much about what other people think. And I've talked about this before in the past, and I know I'll talk about it again, but like how we behave at church on Sunday mornings is the perfect example. We talk a certain way, we smile, we dress a certain way. We really like to put on a show, for lack of a better term, and make sure everyone knows we're doing great. We're rejoicing in the Lord. We are doing this every minute of every day. You don't get a lot of the nitty-gritty stuff at church. We don't really let people in. And that's not everybody, and that's not every church. Don't get me wrong. I know there's plenty of churches where you almost get too much of the nitty-gritty, and so it would be nice to find a balance there. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that on Sunday mornings, because maybe it's not the place to get into if someone's asked, how was your week? It might not be the time to sit down and give them the hour-long story about how your week went. But it just stuck in my head today that we're very similar to that. Human beings in general are just very worried about what other people think. And when you're these guys, the scribes and Pharisees, and you have a powerful position, it's amazing what you'll do to keep that. They let Jesus go. And the other part of this that's funny is that Jesus knows it. He knows right away. There's no way they're going to answer this question, because for that exact reason. I'm either going to make them look silly or the crowd's going to turn on them. So they're not going to answer. He knows them so well that he can just trip them up without even a second thought. And then he just carries on because it wasn't his time yet. So we can get into more of that as we go. And tomorrow night I have a little bit more. We're going to look a little more at the Pharisees and scribes, but we're going to look at more at Jesus challenging them. So I hope everyone's having a great week.